The lights dimmed across Research Outpost E7, casting the common room into a soft blue glow. Outside, a perpetual blizzard howled against reinforced windows. But inside, no one paid attention to the ice world's fury. 3 researchers huddled around the hololithic display, their daily duties forgotten. "It's starting!" Hailey whispered, her golden eve irises widening with excitement. The slender researcher leaned forward, nearly knocking over her cup of synthesized caffeine. "Turn it up! Imid!" Imid, a Cathara analyst with sleek fur and quick talons, adjusted the volume with a flick of his wrist. Patience, Haidali. Jimmy's introduction always takes forever. You'd think after 31 versions, they'd program him to get to the point. His slow delivery is deliberate, Lodaro interjected. The Zor scientist's moist green skin glistened under the lights as he settled into a specially designed chair. Builds anticipation. My species mastered the art of dramatic pauses 6 millennia ago. Your species mastered the art of claiming to master everything 6 millennia ago, Imid retorted, with a playful click of his mandibles. Their banter fell silent as the hololithic display burst into vibrant color. The familiar anthem of Level 1 versus Level 100 Deathworlder boomed through the room, a synthesized melody that had united the galaxy's entertainment networks for 12 seasons. The music faded, replaced by the shimmering form of Jimmy V31.2, the show's holographic host. Greetings, sentients of all atmospheres and gravitational preferences. Jimmy's voice resonated with artificial warmth. His appearance, a carefully designed blend of features from 17 major galactic species, made him relatable to nearly 80% of viewers. Welcome to the most anticipated episode of our 12th season. He says that every episode, Imid muttered. Shh, Healy hissed. Jimmy's holographic form expanded, revealing a swirling backdrop of misty terrain. Today, we unveil our most challenging arena yet, an unclaimed Class D swamp world in the outer nebula. 100 Deathworlder species will be dropped into this untamed environment, with only basic survival gear and their natural abilities. The view shifted, displaying flyover footage of endless marshland, punctuated by massive tree-like growths and pools of multicolored liquid. Fog clung to the surface, obscuring the deeper recesses of murky water. The rules remain unchanged: voluntary withdrawal at any time, non-lethal competition, and survival until only one species remains standing, Jimmy continued. As always, our medical drones stand ready for emergency extraction. Bet you 20 credits the Lamadare dominate this one, Lodaro said, gesturing toward the display. Acid secretion perfect for swamp conditions. Hailey shook her head. Too specialized. I'm putting 30 on the Aquir. Did you see the water channels? They'll navigate those like they were born there. Both wrong, Imid declared, raising a taloned finger. My money's on the Cetarinans, so tiny they can hide anywhere, and their metabolic efficiency is unmatched. What about humans? Hailey asked, her golden eyes gleaming with curiosity. They made it to the semi-finals last season on that volcanic mountain range. Lodaro snorted, a wet sound that expressed perfect Zor derision. Pure luck. The moment they dropped onto that toxic glacier 3 seasons ago, 60% died before figuring out their temperature regulators. I've been studying their entertainment archives, Hailey continued, undeterred. They created simulation games about survival scenarios for millennia before achieving spaceflight. There's something fascinating about... Here come the contestant profiles, Imid interrupted, pointing excitedly at the display. Jimmy's voice became professional as athlete-style statistics appeared alongside rotating images of various species. Lamadare, famous for their concentrated acid secretion, capable of dissolving most organic matter within seconds. Aquir, capable of extracting oxygen from both air and liquid, with webbed appendages allowing speeds of up to 40 knots underwater. Cetarinans, smaller than most species' digits, with camouflage abilities that render them nearly invisible to standard vision spectrums. The profiles continued, each Deathworlder species more intimidating than the last. Vectari, with their regenerative limbs. Morvac, with paralytic spines. Gendar, with infrared hunting vision. And of course, Jimmy's tone shifted to match the dramatic music swelling beneath his words. Our final contestants, humans from Terra, last season's surprise semi-finalists, known for their endurance, pattern recognition, and unpredictability. The hololithic display showed humans in sealed drop pods, awaiting deployment. Unlike many contestants who displayed visible natural weapons, claws, venomous appendages, armored plates, the humans appeared unremarkable. Their only notable features were their varied skin tones and the oversized packs strapped to their backs. "Placing final bets?" Imid asked, his claws hovering over his personal tablet. Lodaro tapped his green, webbed fingers against the table. 50 credits on Lamadare dominance by day 5. 35 on a queer lasting at least 2 weeks, Hiley countered. Imid chittered with amusement. 20 on Ceterinans outlasting everyone through sheer invisibility, and 5 on humans getting eliminated within 48 hours. Deal, they chorused, as the deployment countdown began. The first pods streaked through the swamp planet's atmosphere like meteors, their heat shields glowing orange against the murky sky. Lamadare dropped first, their reinforced containers designed to withstand the acid that perpetually leaked from their bodies. The moment they emerged, their strategy became apparent, using controlled acid secretion to create raised platforms amid the swampy terrain. Clever. Lodaro nodded approvingly. They're dissolving the local flora to create solid islands above the muck. The Aquir arrival pods splashed directly into the deepest water channels. Within moments, the amphibious beings were swimming through the murky depths, their specialized vision allowing them to navigate underwater obstacles. Straight to their strength, Hiley remarked. But they'll need to surface eventually. Pod after pod descended, each species immediately leaning into their evolutionary advantages. The Vectari extended specialized limbs to test soil toxicity. Morvac deployed paralytic spines in defensive perimeters. Gendar immediately began hunting, using infrared vision to track heat signatures through the fog. "Where are the Ceterinans?" Imid wondered, leaning closer to the display. "I can't see. Oh, there they are." The camera zoomed in on what appeared to be empty space, then adjusted its spectrum to reveal dozens of tiny beings scurrying into the hollow spaces of massive tree trunks. Their bodies shifted color to match the bark perfectly. "And here come the humans," Lodaro said, his tone dismissive. Human pods descended more chaotically than the others, bouncing and skidding across the wet terrain. The occupants emerged, immediately struggling with their heavy packs. The first few hours of human activity appeared disorganized. Tents collapsed in the wind and rain. Equipment sank into unexpected patches of quicksand, and several contestants nearly wandered into toxic pools before their chemical detectors warned them away. 5 credits well spent, Imid chuckled, watching a human fall face first into shallow water after tripping over an exposed root. By the end of day 1, attrition had already begun. Several Morvac had withdrawn after discovering their paralytic spines dissolved in the acidic rain. A Gendar had accidentally cornered a native predator and barely escaped with a functioning respiratory system. 3 Vectari discovered their regenerative abilities worked too slowly against the indigenous bacteria and tapped out rather than risk permanent damage. "Surprising," Hiley murmured as they watched the overnight summary. "No human withdrawals yet." "Give it time," Lodaro said confidently. "They're burning energy at an unsustainable rate." Day 2 brought the first major elimination event. A sudden torrential downpour flooded much of the swamp, catching several species unprepared. The Lamadare discovered their acid platforms dissolved too quickly under extreme water volume. 4 of their contestants tapped out, unwilling to be stranded when their islands literally melted beneath them. Your 50 credits are looking shaky, Lodaro highly teased. The Zor huffed, but remained confident. The remaining Lamadare will adapt. They always do. Meanwhile, the human approach began to shift. After numerous tent failures, they abandoned their shelters altogether. Using the waterproof fabric from their parachutes, they began constructing hammock-like structures between trees, elevated well above the swamp floor. Interesting, Hailey said, leaning forward. They're mimicking primate ancestors. Just because they're not immediately dying doesn't make them contenders. Lodaro dismissed. Look at the Aquir. They've already established hunting territories in all major water channels. Day 3 brought the emergence of clearer strategies. The Lamadare consolidated their remaining contestants onto larger, more stable acid platforms. The Aquir developed hunting patterns, ambushing smaller native fauna from underwater. The Cetarinans remained largely invisible, occasionally glimpsed gathering microscopic nutrients from tree bark. The humans, however, began displaying unexpected coordination. They organized into small teams. Some focused on improving their elevated shelters. Others crafted primitive tools from parachute cords and metal parts salvaged from their drop pods. By sunset, they had created a rudimentary tool for extracting starchy roots from beneath the swamp's surface, a food source other species had overlooked. They're adapting, Imid admitted reluctantly. Though I still don't see how they compete with specialized biology. Day 4 brought disaster for several more species. A poisonous fog rolled across the western quadrant, forcing mass withdrawals among the Victari, whose permeable skin absorbed toxins too readily. The Gendar discovered their infrared vision became useless as ambient temperatures rose, causing them to lose their hunting advantage. Standings update, Jimmy announced cheerfully at the day's conclusion. 43 species remain in competition. Lamadare down to 15 contestants. Aquir holding strong at 22. Humans maintaining all 20 initial contestants. Wait, what? Lodaro blinked in surprise. Not a single human withdrawal? Hailey smiled. Their parachute shelters seem quite effective against the rain, and they've organized food-gathering teams. Temporary success, the Zor insisted. They lack the specialized adaptations for long-term survival. Day 5 delivered the first major shock of the competition. The remaining Lamadare contestants gathered in a single location, conferred briefly, and then, as one, activated their emergency beacons. The camera zoomed in as medical drones swooped down to extract them. A full Lamadare withdrawal! Jimmy's holographic form appeared, radiating artificial surprise. In their exit interviews, Lamadare contestants cite unsustainable acid production and insufficient organic material for platforms as their reasoning. Who could have predicted this twist? Lodaro stared at the display in disbelief. Impossible! Their acid secretion should have... Adaptation isn't just about having an advantage, Hailey interrupted gently. It's about maintaining it under changing conditions. The Zor grudgingly transferred 50 credits to his colleagues' accounts. Days 6 through 20 passed in a competitive blur. The hololithic display showed montages of species adapting, struggling, and frequently withdrawing as the swamp environment revealed new hazards daily. Toxic flowering plants released airborne spores. Carnivorous fungi erupted from seemingly solid ground. Flash floods rearranged entire sections of terrain overnight. By day 20, only 3 species remained: Aquir, Cetarinans, and humans. I'll admit, I'm impressed, Imid said, watching a human group successfully trap and cook a swamp creature using an ingenious snare system. They shouldn't have lasted this long. Their tool use is remarkable, Hailey agreed. Did you see how they repurposed broken tent poles into fishing spears? Lodaro remained skeptical. The Aquir still dominate the waterways, which comprise 60% of the viable territory. And we've barely seen the Cetarinans. They could be thriving unseen. Jimmy's holographic form materialized with the Day 21 announcement. Attention! Viewers and contestants, as we've reached our final 3 species, the producers have authorized an additional challenge. The camera panned to show sleek, metallic objects hovering at the swamp's edge. Predator drones, Jimmy explained, his voice brimming with artificial excitement. These automated hunters are equipped with non-lethal, but highly inconveniencing weaponry. They will track, learn, and adapt to each species' patterns. That changes everything, Healy breathed. The drones deployed immediately, scanning the environment with multiple sensor arrays. The first targets were the Aquir, whose regular surfacing for air created predictable patterns. Within hours, several Aquir had been tagged with bright paint markers that would make them visible to predators. The Cetarinans' camouflage initially confused the drones, but the machines quickly adapted, using thermal scanning to detect their tiny heat signatures. Several Cetarinans were forced to abandon carefully constructed hiding places when drones hovered persistently nearby. The humans' response proved most intriguing. Rather than hiding individually, they organized into larger groups. Some created distractions, while others moved supplies. They developed a system of whistles and hand signals to communicate drone positions without vocalizing. They're treating it like a game, Emid observed with reluctant admiration. Look, they're actually luring drones into areas where the foliage interferes with sensors. Days 22 through 32 showed the continuing battle of adaptation. The Aquir found their advantage severely compromised. Each time they surfaced for air, drones would be waiting. Their numbers dwindled steadily as contestants withdrew, rather than face constant harassment. The Cetarinans fared better, having established numerous hiding spots throughout the massive trees. However, the drones' learning algorithms eventually identified the subtle signs of bark disturbance that indicated Cetarinan presence. Final Aquir withdrawal, Jimmy announced on day 32. After losing access to their primary hunting grounds and suffering continuous drone tracking, the Aquir team has unanimously decided to withdraw. Now it's just Cetarinans and humans, Healy said, her eyes wide with excitement. I never would have predicted this outcome. The Cetarinans still have the advantage, Emid insisted. Their tiny size and minimal resource needs mean they can outlast humans in a war of attrition. Lodaro, still smarting from his lost bet, merely grunted. The contest isn't over yet. Day 35 brought the most dramatic twist yet. Without warning, the swamp planet's unpredictable weather patterns shifted dramatically. Temperatures plummeted overnight. The surface water began to freeze. Snow, a phenomenon none of the contestants had prepared for, began to fall heavily. Weather anomaly, Jimmy announced gleefully. Our meteorological experts inform me this is a once-per-decade event on this particular swamp world. How will our finalists adapt? The answer came swiftly and mercilessly. The Cetarinans, whose tiny bodies lost heat rapidly, could not venture out of their tree hollows without risking hypothermia. Yet remaining inside meant eventual starvation as their food sources became inaccessible beneath ice and snow. The humans, meanwhile, consolidated into larger groups. They used their parachute fabric to create wind barriers around fires. Teams ventured out in rotation, using body heat conservation techniques to extend their foraging time. They broke through ice to continue extracting the starchy roots they'd discovered earlier. They're actually thriving, Healy whispered in amazement. Look, they're using the snow as a water source and to refrigerate their food stores. Day 36 brought the final resolution. One by one, Cetarinan emergency beacons activated across the frozen swamp. Medical drones retrieved the tiny beings from their increasingly cold tree hollows. And there we have it! Jimmy's holographic form expanded to fill the display, his expression triumphant. After 36 days of extraordinary competition, humans are declared the champions of this season's Level 1 versus Level 100 Deathworlder challenge. The camera panned across the remaining human contestants. They looked haggard, dirty, and exhausted, but undeniably victorious. They had constructed an entire village of elevated shelters, complete with food storage, tool-making areas, and communal spaces. As the extraction shuttles descended, they gathered their created tools, rather than leaving them behind. "I can't believe it," Lodaro admitted, his moist skin reflecting the display's glow. "They shouldn't have survived the first week." "Their advantage wasn't physical," Hayalai said thoughtfully. "It was cognitive flexibility and social cooperation. No specialized trait can match that combination under changing conditions." Imid reluctantly transferred his remaining credits to Hailey's account. "I suppose I'll need to review some human historical archives. There might be more to these creatures than we realized." As Jimmy delivered his closing monologue, the three researchers began shutting down their observation equipment, preparing to return to their neglected duties, monitoring spatial anomalies on the ice planet's fringe. "Same time next season?" Hailey asked, a hint of challenge in her golden eyes. "Absolutely," Lodaro and Amid agreed in unison. Outside, the blizzard continued unabated. Inside, three researchers returned to their stations, their perspectives on a particular Deathworlder species forever altered. Across the galaxy, billions of viewers began enthusiastic debates about what environment might challenge the newly crowned champions in the next season. And somewhere, in a clean medical bay aboard an extraction vessel, 20 exhausted humans accepted rehydration treatments and medical scans, already discussing what they might face in the upcoming beast taming special episode. "Absolutely fascinating," Hailey murmured, scrolling through her tablet 6 months later. The Eve researcher's golden eyes flicked rapidly across the screen as she absorbed information in the research outpost's common room. "What now?" Lodaro asked, not bothering to look up from his own work. "If it's another human survival game archive, I've heard enough about those to last several molting cycles." "Better," Hailey replied with a grin. "Registration data for the next Deathworlder season. The number of species volunteering to compete alongside humans has doubled." Imid's ears perked up, his furry head turning toward the conversation. "Competing against them, you mean? After that swamp demonstration, who would want to be on the same team?" "That's just it," Hailey said, turning her tablet so both colleagues could see. "The next season is collaborative. Species are registering to partner with humans. The waiting list for human teammates exceeds all other species combined." Lodaro blinked his nictitating membranes in surprise. "Why would advanced species want to pair with them? They have no natural weapons, no specialized adaptations." "Because," Imid interrupted, understanding dawning in his eyes, "they're the ultimate adaptation specialists. No matter what environment the show producers select, humans will find some way to manipulate it." "Precisely." Hailey nodded enthusiastically. The Kaisar, who previously dismissed humans as soft-skinned anomalies, now described them as the species that transforms weaknesses into strategies. The Volux are calling them environmental artists. Lodaro huffed skeptically, but his expression betrayed growing curiosity. One successful season doesn't rewrite evolutionary hierarchies. "Maybe not," Hailey conceded. "But it certainly reframes the conversation. The Galactic Cultural Ministry reports a 300% increase in applications to study human history and adaptation patterns." Imid's whiskers twitched with amusement. "Are you submitting an application, Hailey?" The Eve researcher's golden eyes gleamed. "Already approved. I'm transferring to the Terra Historical Archive next rotation. There's an entire section on how humans deliberately created survival challenges for entertainment before they'd actually mastered survival." "That's..." Lodaro struggled to find the right word. "Contradictory." "That's human," Hailey corrected. "And apparently, contradictory is their natural state. Did you know they simultaneously developed thousands of different cuisines while also creating food replacement supplements? Or that they built virtual reality systems to simulate natural environments while living inside them?" The conversation paused as the outpost's communication system chimed. All three researchers checked their tablets. "Broadcast notification," Emmett announced. "The producers have announced the next Deathworlder environment. Volcanic archipelago with unpredictable tsunamis." "Wager on the final teams?" Lodaro suggested, his scientific curiosity evidently overcoming his previous skepticism. "Human Kaisar partnership for the win," Hyli said without hesitation. "Human Volux," Emmett countered. "Combined tool use and electromagnetic manipulation?" Lodaro considered for a moment before answering. "Human Zor," he said finally. "Our adaptive skin with their problem-solving." "Look at us," Hyli laughed. "Not one prediction without humans in the final round." "Perhaps," Lodaro admitted reluctantly. "We've been underestimating the value of being an unspecialized generalist in a universe of constant change." Speaking of change," Emid interjected, gesturing toward the window. "The storm's clearing for the first time in weeks. We should run external diagnostics while we have the chance." As the three researchers moved toward their workstations, Hyli cast one last glance at her tablet. The registration page showed hundreds of species lined up to partner with the galaxy's newest Deathworlder celebrities. Above the list, the season's tagline glowed in multiple languages. "Adaptation, the ultimate weapon." Dr. Velinar adjusted his ocular implants, focusing on the small gathering in Research Outpost E7's newly expanded common room. As chief xenobiologist for the Galactic Science Council, he rarely visited remote monitoring stations. Today, however, was a special occasion. "Begin recording," he instructed his neural assistant. "Subject: 1-year observational follow-up on human integration, post-Deathworlder victory." The common room had changed significantly. What was once a sparse, functional space now featured elements from multiple species' comfort requirements: moisture dispensers for Zor personnel, climbing fixtures for Cathera analysts, and, most notably, an entire wall dedicated to archived footage of the now legendary swamp episode. "Dr. Velinar," Hyli called, waving him over to a central table. "We're honored by your presence. May I introduce my colleagues?" The Eve researcher had changed as well. Her uniform now featured the distinctive insignia of the Terra Historical Archive, a prestigious posting she'd earned after publishing her analysis of human adaptive strategies. "Lodaro, our senior environmental specialist," she continued, gesturing to the Zor scientist. "And Emid, our Cathara systems analyst." "The famous trio," Dr. Velinar acknowledged with formal courtesy. "Your viewing records from the championship episode have become quite influential. 26 scientific papers cite your documentation of the human victory." Lodaro's moist skin flushed with a deeper green tint, the Zor equivalent of embarrassment. "We merely watched an entertainment broadcast, Doctor. Hardly scientific observation." "Yet you noted patterns others missed," Dr. Velinar countered. "Your observation that humans prioritized tool creation over immediate comfort directly influenced the galactic military's new training protocols." Emid's whiskers twitched with surprise. "Military applications? From a reality show?" "Indeed." The chief xenobiologist activated a holographic display above the table. "The Council has been monitoring human integration across specialized fields. Their approach to problem-solving has proven disruptive." The display showed various scenes: humans working alongside Kaisar engineers, collaborating with Volux energy specialists, even assisting Zor environmental teams. In each case, the humans appeared to be suggesting unorthodox approaches that clearly confused, but ultimately impressed their colleagues. "We've identified a pattern," Dr. Velinar continued. "When faced with specialized challenges, humans instinctively seek ways to redefine the problem rather than directly overcome it. They view limitations as design parameters rather than obstacles. We observed something similar during the snowstorm," Hyli noted. "Instead of trying to fight the cold directly, they incorporated it into their food preservation strategy." Precisely. Dr. Velinar nodded approvingly. This tendency has led the Council to create a new classification category. Humans are now officially designated as context specialists, the first species to receive this distinction. Lodaro's nictitating membranes blinked rapidly, a sign of intense interest. Context specialists? That seems contradictory, yet appropriate. Dr. Velinar replied. Their specialization is in adapting to changing contexts, rather than excelling within fixed parameters. This makes them uniquely valuable in scenarios where conditions are unpredictable or rapidly evolving. Imid leaned forward, his furry ears perked with curiosity. Is that why we've received orders to incorporate human personnel into all frontier outposts? Our station is scheduled to receive 2 human researchers next rotation. Yes. The Council believes human perspective will prove essential in monitoring spatial anomalies and other unpredictable phenomena. Dr. Velinar's expression became more serious. However, this integration presents certain challenges. The holographic display shifted to show incidents of cultural friction. A human gesticulating wildly, while a stoic Volux researcher recoiled. A Kaisar engineer appearing distressed as a human dismantled and reconfigured standard equipment. A group of Zor scientists watching in horror as a human tested a theory through direct physical interaction with a specimen. Their methods can appear chaotic, even reckless, Dr. Velinar acknowledged. Which is why stations with prior human exposure, like yours, are considered optimal for initial integration. Hylai's golden eyes gleamed with barely contained excitement. We would be honored to welcome human colleagues. Doctor, my time at the Terra Historical Archive provided valuable insight into their collaborative patterns. Excellent, Dr. Velinar said, deactivating the holographic display. Now, I understand you've maintained contact with some of the human contestants from the championship episode. Lodaro shifted uncomfortably. Not direct contact. We've simply followed their subsequent appearances in official broadcasts. Several have become instructors in cross-species survival techniques. Imid added. Their methods are unorthodox but effective. The Council would appreciate any observations you might share regarding their teaching approaches, Dr. Velinar said. Particularly their methods for communicating abstract concepts across species with different sensory processing. The conversation continued for hours, with the 3 researchers sharing insights they'd gathered from their continued fascination with human adaptability. Dr. Velinar recorded everything, occasionally interjecting with clarifying questions or connections to broader research initiatives. As the meeting concluded, Hyali escorted the distinguished visitor to the outpost's transportation bay. One last question, if I may, Dr. Velinar said, pausing before boarding his shuttle. You've studied humans extensively now. In your opinion, what is their most valuable contribution to galactic society? Hyali considered for a moment before answering. Their comfort with contradiction. Doctor, other species seek consistency. We specialize, optimize, perfect a single approach. Humans embrace opposing ideas simultaneously. They prepare meticulously, yet improvise constantly. They form hierarchies yet function best when those hierarchies dissolve under pressure. They compete ferociously, yet achieve their greatest successes through cooperation. Fascinating, Dr. Velinar murmured. And how does this benefit us? It reminds us that adaptation isn't just about becoming better at what we already do, Hyali replied. Sometimes it's about becoming something entirely different when circumstances demand it. As Dr. Velinar's shuttle departed, Hyali returned to the common room, where Lodaro and Imid were already deep in discussion about preparing for their upcoming human colleagues. We should redesign the research protocols, Lodaro was saying, his previous skepticism apparently forgotten. Humans prefer experimental flexibility over rigid procedural adherence. And the communication systems, Imid added. They process information through multiple simultaneous channels: visual, auditory, even tactile in some cases. Hailey smiled as she joined them. Outside, the perpetual storm of the ice planet had returned, battering the outpost with renewed fury. Inside, 3 researchers who had once gathered to watch an entertainment broadcast were now preparing to participate in a much larger adaptation experiment. Somewhere in the galaxy, former Deathworlder champions were teaching others how to survive in hostile environments. Somewhere else, producers were planning even more challenging arenas for future competitions. And everywhere, beings of all species were beginning to look at the universe and their place in it through slightly different eyes. The ultimate Deathworlder lesson wasn't about survival at all. It was about transformation. Attention! Research Outpost E7 personnel. The automated system announced. Incoming transport, arriving in Docking Bay 3. Human researchers Taylor and Martinez reporting for duty. Hailey straightened her uniform nervously. After months of preparation, the moment had finally arrived. Beside her, Lodaro adjusted the humidity settings one last time, while Amid performed a final check of the modified workstations. "Ready?" she asked her colleagues. "As will ever be," Lodaro replied, his skin glistening with anticipation moisture. The transport doors hissed open. 2 humans emerged, carrying surprisingly minimal personal equipment. They appeared momentarily disoriented by the outpost's artificial gravity, but adjusted quickly. "Welcome to Research Outpost E7, Hailey said, stepping forward with a traditional Eve greeting gesture. "I'm Senior Researcher Hailey, and these are my colleagues Lodaro and Amid." "Thanks for the welcome," the taller human replied with a smile. "I'm Martinez. This is Taylor. We've heard a lot about your team." "You have?" Amid's ears perked up in surprise. "Of course," Taylor said, setting down a compact case of equipment. "You're the researchers who documented the Championship Swamp episode. Your analysis of human adaptive strategies is required, reading at the Interspecies Cooperation Academy now." Hailey felt her golden irises widen with surprise. "I had no idea our observations had such impact." "Impact?" Martinez laughed. "You 3 essentially rewrote how non-human species perceive human problem-solving. Before your documentation, we were classified as erratic risk-takers with limited specialized potential. Now, we're context adaptation specialists. A much more accurate designation." Lodaro acknowledged, his previous skepticism completely transformed after months of research and preparation. "We've prepared your workstations according to human ergonomic standards," Imid said, gesturing toward the modified equipment. "Though we welcome any suggestions for improvement." Taylor glanced at the careful preparations and exchanged a look with Martinez. "Actually, if it's all right with you, we'd prefer to adapt to the existing setup as much as possible. Part of our assignment is to improve cross-species workflow integration." "That's..." Lodaro blinked his nictitating membranes in surprise. "Not what we expected." "Adaptation works both ways," Martinez explained with a shrug. "If humans are going to be valuable members of interstellar research teams, we need to adapt to you as much as you adapt to us." Hailey felt a surge of respect for the new arrivals. "Perhaps we all have something to learn from each other." "That's the idea," Taylor agreed. "Now, we understand you're monitoring spatial anomalies in this sector. We've developed some unorthodox detection algorithms we'd like to integrate with your systems. With your permission, of course." As the 5 researchers moved deeper into the outpost, beginning what would become a revolutionary collaboration, a notification chimed on all their devices simultaneously. "New season of Level 1 versus Level 100 Deathworlder begins transmission in 1 hour." The message read, "Special Collaborative Edition. Cross-species teams face the Volcanic Archipelago Challenge." Martinez grinned. "Anyone interested in watching? I have friends competing in this one." "Wouldn't miss it," Hailey, Lodaro, and Amid replied in perfect unison. Outside, The ice planet's eternal storm continued its assault on the reinforced walls of Research Outpost E7. Inside, 5 researchers from 4 different worlds prepared to watch a new chapter in interspecies cooperation unfold, both on their screens and in their daily work together. The ultimate adaptation had begun, learning from each other.